This is episode 63 of the Battle of Ohio podcast. It is Steelers week in Cincinnati, and I am freaking hyped. I'm so ready to dive into that team out east. But first, before that, we got Larry Dyer from Bears Talk Underground back on the podcast this week. And he's going to help us talk about the Browns and Bears game that's going to be coming up. So we're going to preview that.
Before we get to that, Kyle, I got one thing that I wanted to say.
What's that? You know what? You know what? We're gonna talk about that too, because what I was gonna say was we're gonna preview the the Bears Browns game, and then we're gonna debrief on that stinker of a game that we saw on Sunday. And we're also probably going to talk a little bit about whether or not, it was right of the Bears fans to be hating on Andy Dalton so much when Justin Fields came in, nearly lost him the game.
Right. Well, we made up for it because we donated, I don't know how much money it was, but enough to make Andy Dalton's wife cry that we started donating to his charity, basically as a thank you for us being dickheads to him this whole time.
Oh, well.
The Bengals donated to the Bears charity with all them turnovers.
Shut up. All right, but finally, I don't care if Ben Roethlisberger is legitimately going to be available to play on Sunday or not. Because why, Thomas?
Because the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger, Dwayne Haskins, Mason Rudolph, and their entire offensive line sucks.
Yeah, because
you suck, Pittsburgh.
Suck.
There's always a satisfaction that comes out of saying that. Like imagine just coming on your podcast every day and just saying, "You suck, Packers." Gets me up in the morning. Gets me up every Thursday, Monday morning.
Amen to that.
It's always a great way to start things off because you know exactly what we're coming with. Why don't you tell me what you're drinking today, Thomas?
Today I'm drinking a Modelo. I don't know why. I just walked into the gas station. I was like, I need a beer. And I seen Modelo. I'm like, I haven't had one of these in a while. So, Modelo's like that beer that people drink to feel fancy, but they're not really fancy.
I've literally never in my life. What'd you say, Larry?
Or they fight for the UFC.
Exactly. I've literally
the
never
official beer of the
life.
UFC. So
I have literally never in my life connected Modelo with fancy anything.
No, I said people who want to feel fancy who are not really fancy. Yeah, I'm drinking a Modelo. I'm fancy.
I mean, that's like saying I'm drinking a Miller High Life because I'm like an upper class member of society.
It's literally the same thing. People drink Miller High Life because they feel like it makes them feel important. It's a mirage.
I just can't. I can't imagine why Modelo would make you feel high class or anything like that because it's not. It's like it's like two steps above PBR.
But how can you not feel high class with a name like Modelo? Well, what are you drinking? I'm drinking Modelo. Nice. Ooh, it's like Mufasa. It's a good name.
All right. You drinking anything today, Larry?
I just had dinner, so I'm good right now. Thanks.
Fair enough. I am drinking. I was planning on saving this for the next episode because I might potentially need something strong if the Bengals don't win this upcoming game against that team out east. But you know what? I'm riding confident. I'm gonna use the strong stuff this time because I'm not gonna need it on our recap episode. I'm drinking the Batella de Puebla. I hope I didn't butcher that name. It's a tequila barrel-aged lime goss. Okay, yeah, I can't pronounce anything. I don't even know what it is, but it said something about tequila, so to me it sounded like it was strong.
I never drink tequila, man. You know what they say about tequila.
That's not strong at all. It tastes good. It's not strong at all.
By the way,
brewed
Kyle.
with lime juice, coriander, and sea salt. That's why it tastes good.
By the way, Kyle, I got the Panthers. No, I got the Texans tonight. Give me the Texans. No.
You're picking
give me
we didn't make
give
our
me the
predictions.
Panthers.
Yeah.
No, dang, I don't know. This is tough.
Okay, I'm picking the Panthers. There's no question.
I'm taking the Panthers.
Definitely
Yeah, give me the Panthers. Yeah, because Sam Darnold will come out. He go do his thing. Sam Darnold's been looking really good. Give me the Panthers. This is slam dunk.
I know they played well against the Browns, but I
Houston's
don't trust the Texans.
Houston's at home.
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't know.
What do you think, Larry? You want to get on the prediction here?
Well, I'm taking the Panthers, and I was taking the Panthers before they scored a touchdown on the opening drive of the game. So
See, I wasn't even watching the game. See, look, but it's just really hard to pick against a home team on Thursday night for some reason.
Well, you're also not remembering that you must be forgetting who their quarterback is out there.
Oh no, trust me, I did forget him. I literally forgot his name on the podcast. They're not going to beat
Carolina tonight. That's not happening.
Yeah, no, I'm going to give me the Panthers. I literally forgot who they.
They're not going to beat him, especially with how good Sam Darnold's been playing for them.
Sam Darnold's looking amazing. Oh my
God. he's looking like just about everything that they were hoping he would be in New York. Like when they were talking about him as being potentially the number 1 draft pick that year. I remember that like pretty much everything everybody was saying that he could be is what's showing up in Carolina. So I think we can safely assume that it was all Adam Gase's fault.
I mean, come on. I mean, like bad coaching ruins young quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Can we just get that the myth Sam Darnold's the proof of that. I wonder how many quarterbacks the Browns ruin.
Well, I mean, it also helps that they have this thing in Carolina that they were missing in New York, which is called talent
and culture.
They surrounded Sam Darnold with nothing in New York and expected the world. And in Carolina, they actually have Christian McCaffrey. I mean, that alone trumps anything he had in New York, and he's reunited with Robbie Anderson. Yeah, they have reunited with Robbie Anderson, the only target he had in his time with the Jets and everything like that. And Carolina's invested pretty much every draft pick they have in defense, and they've been playing lights out for the first 2 weeks. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What did you think about Adam Gase? Well, in his very brief stint in Chicago, Larry?
He was only there for a year, and he was kind of known as the Jay Cutler whisperer, which is why they reunited in Miami when Tannehill got hurt that one year in 2017. And, I was sad to see him go because the offense looked better. Jay Cutler was far more under control than he was in previous years. He wasn't as much of a gunslinger and just basically throwing the ball anywhere and anyhow. Yeah. And, I mean, we were 5-11, something like that, but it was a much more controlled Jay Cutler. We weren't losing games because of him or anything like that. It was one of his best seasons, ironically enough, for how we finished. I actually think we were like 6-10 or something. We were better than we were with Trestman the year before. So,
well, in general, it always seemed interesting. Like I find it kind of interesting that Adam Gase is basically just completely out of the league. Because he always I know he was terrible as a head coach. He was just a disaster as a head coach, but he did fairly well in most of his other roles. Like whenever he was an offensive coordinator, things went pretty well. I know he was a disaster as a head coach. The same thing happened to Hugh Jackson. He was a disaster of a head coach and ended up never coming back to the league, even though he was a pretty good coordinator. I just think, I don't know, maybe it'll take a couple of years. Maybe he's taking the year off because he's tired of being abused.
Yeah, I felt the same way about Todd Bowles, actually, when he went to the Jets. He had this lights-out defense in Arizona. He goes to the Jets, and the Jets weren't very good. He goes to Tampa Bay and builds a world championship defense with them. It's like some guys are just better controlling one side of the ball instead of trying to run an entire football team. So I dubbed Todd Bowles the next Wade Phillips because that details Wade Phillips' entire career. Whenever he was a head coach, success was a few and far between thing, but you literally send him anywhere as defensive coordinator and you got a top 5 defense inside the first year. He did it with the Texans. He did it with the Rams on his last stop. He was, everywhere he went, he had a world championship level defense, whether the offense was good enough or not, but his unit was always lights out. But whenever he got a new opportunity as a head coach, he didn't last very long because he was better as a coordinator.
Well, there you go.
I mean,
let's go ahead and let's go ahead and hop into this Bears Browns preview though.
Oh yeah.
So you got for the I think it did Andy Dalton play the Browns last year when he was in Dallas? I can't remember.
No, we played Dak Prescott. We played Dak Prescott. Yeah, we played Dak Prescott. I was at that game. Dak Prescott lit up the Browns.
I remember that. Didn't you go to that game?
Yeah, I was at that game. That was the game I told you about with Odell Beckham had 4 touchdowns. He kicked the ball in the end zone. That was hilarious.
Yeah, that was a pretty interesting game.
That was a fun
game that they ran for like 300 yards or something like that against the Cowboys.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 It's a good game.
I do believe back when Andy Dalton was in Cincinnati, he generally played really well against the Browns. You know, we haven't beaten the Browns. We haven't been doing so great against the Browns lately, but for the most part during Andy Dalton's tenure, we kind of owned the Browns, and that was great. So Larry, I guess my first question for you is Justin Fields the starter now, or is Andy Dalton going to get to see his old friends again?
I was floored yesterday to find out that Matt Nagy would give up on this nonsense of gamesmanship or whatever, and actually announced Fields as the starter yesterday. Wow. I really thought he was going to milk it for all it was worth and wait until like the injury designations come out on Friday, you know, where it's listed, so-and-so's doubtful, so-and-so's probable, so-and-so's questionable. I thought they were going to wait until the very last second when those designations came out on Friday to name Fields the starter, just to keep the Browns wondering who the quarterback was going to be. But instead, I guess they wanted to give Justin Fields a vote of confidence, and they went out first day back after the day off on Tuesday, named Fields the starter, and that was it.
Well, I asked because I think I heard a quote from Nagy. If it wasn't earlier today, it might have been yesterday, that he was saying something like, you know, if Andy Dalton's healthy, he's our starter.
Yeah. Chicago will burn to the ground if Andy Dalton is put back into the lineup, quite honestly, regardless of how Justin Fields plays. I mean, we want him out there as a fan base, and we know that he's a rookie, so there's going to be some lumps to take, but you know, he's in there now. So we're in this. It's the future is now. The train has left the station. Do not go backwards. We can't put Andy Dalton back in there. So it would not go over well at all if Nagy is just going to stick to his guns and put Dalton in there. It can't happen. I mean, it probably will, knowing him, but it shouldn't, and it can't.
What is the pulse of the fan base in Chicago right now? I'm very interested. There's a lot of people in Ohio that's very excited about Justin Fields because of the Ohio State thing. Personally, I don't like Ohio State, so I don't care. Yeah, me neither. I'll always smack them, but but that's not here or there. I'm actually very high on Justin Fields. I think that he's probably one of the better Ohio State quarterbacks, not the best Ohio State quarterback to come out of Ohio State in a very long time. I think that he has an arm talent. I think that he can throw the ball. I think that he's very disciplined. I think that he's a very I love his game, actually. I love his attitude. I think that he's the ultimate competitor. I think he has that it factor a lot of quarterbacks don't have. But what's the level of excitement in Chicago for Justin Fields?
Well, it's through the roof right now. I mean, we've been excited about Justin. I mean, it literally turned the offseason around, because the entire offseason was nothing but a disaster for the Bears. We had no cap space, so we couldn't go out and really make a splash in free agency. We ended up cutting some of our top talent because of salary cap reasons. Like, we let go of Kyle Fuller, not because he's past his prime and he can't cover anybody anymore, but because the Bears had messed around with the contracts and pushing money into the future so much that Kyle Fuller's $12 million salary was going to be a $20 to $21 million cap hit this year. And they couldn't talk to him about an extension or, you know, to lower that cap number at all. So they had to let him go. And, you know, after it was also embarrassing that the Bears were part of the quarterback sweepstakes with literally anybody that was even semi available. You know, you name it, the Bears were connected to him. Derek Carr, Matt Stafford, and like the moment that we jumped the shark, where every Bear fan just threw his hands up and they're like, okay, this is ridiculous, is the 10 seconds that the Steelers were talking about getting rid of Ben Roethlisberger. Well, Chicago could be a destination for Ben Roethlisberger and things like that. And then we had this really heavy flirtation with Russell Wilson, where he actually named us as one of the 4 places that he would go if he were to leave Seattle. And it sounded like the Bears had an offer on the table. Then Seattle turns it down. And then literally on the heels of it, we signed Andy Dalton and post the now infamous QB1 tweet with him photoshopped into a Bear uniform. So that was our offseason. And then comes the draft, and somehow Justin Fields falls in our lap. We make a trade with the Giants where Dave Gettleman, God bless him and his entire family, who did not gut us in the process to move up from 20 to 11. And it's like now all of a sudden we feel like we have a future, whereas nobody was looking forward to 2021 ahead of time. We were all excited about him and what it could mean going forward. So we've been excited about Fields since draft night. So the fact that he's going out there as the starter, we're all thrilled about it.
I'm actually very excited about this game. I got really good tickets for this game. I'm only 15 rows from the field.
Oh,
so
nice.
I'm really excited about this game. I want to have my Baker Mayfield for MVP sign. Actually, let me show you the sign. Let me show you the sign.
Did you scribble Baker on it 1,000 times? What is all that?
I went to the Browns tailgate. Long story short, I'm not gonna tell you the long story. Long story short, basically I went to the Browns tailgate, and me and a couple of random people just made a Baker Mayfield for MVP sign. So they were like, "Hey, can we sign it?" I was like, "Yeah, go ahead, sign it." And then next thing you know, hundreds of thousands of people are signing it. And I'm just like, it's like, all right, well, I started something. So it says Baker for MVP on it. I'm actually really excited about this game because I like the Bears defense. The Bears always have a good defensive five defense. Look what they did to the Bengals. The Bears defense, they force turnovers. They force teams to make mistakes. So that's going to be very fun to watch. Baker Mayfield and Odell Beckham possibly. It seems like Odell Beckham's going to go. From rumors, he's like the worst kept secret right now. Yeah. It seems like Odell Beckham's going to go on Sunday. So I'm really excited to see how the Browns play against the defense. It's going to be a much better game than Texas game. I don't think that – excuse me for thinking this, but I don't think that they're going to – do you think that they're going to let Justin Fields pass the ball a lot, or you think he's going to get a very minute playbook where they kind of like work him into the –
Yeah, that's the worry, because this is Matt Nagy that we're talking about, who was hailed, to come from Kansas City as some kind of offensive genius. And in his 3 years prior as our head coach, we've been in the bottom third of the league every single year. So, we're all kind of, because like week 1 against the Rams, we threw 2 passes longer than 10 yards the entire football game. Last week, it just, it didn't seem like we had a plan for Justin Fields. Like there was no contingency for Andy Dalton not playing, because it just kind of was, we didn't roll him out. We were running the game plan for Andy Dalton because that was the game plan for the game. I would hope that a game plan that has Justin Fields with his mobility and his running ability, that would have him in a moving pocket, rolling to his out, because he's deadly accurate from the, from rolling out and things like that. I mean, I'm always reminding myself of that throw that he made in the preseason against Tennessee, where he threw it in a window about this big to get a touchdown pass to Jesper Horsted in the end zone against the Titans in the preseason. It's like he put it literally where only Jesper Horsted could get it. He threw into such a tiny window. And I'm hoping that it would mean that there's going to be some more rollouts, maybe use play action, get David Montgomery involved. And we won't just, he can be a drop back passer, but we want to be able to utilize his athletic ability and kind of offset any weakness that we might have in the offensive line, because they can play pretty well, but they can also be one of the worst units in the league. They're a Jekyll and Hyde kind of offensive line. So, they can be trusted and they can't all at the same time. So we got to protect our quarterback.
I was just about to add. That was going to be my next question because, like, you think about it. You got Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett, and that defense. The first half of the game, the Browns defense didn't look good. The second half, they looked better. Now, granted, they did play against a worse quarterback, but they got more pressure in the second half. Do you think that offensive line be able to hold Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett?
I think so, but can they hold them for 60 plays or whatever? I don't know. It's like that's the thing about a Myles Garrett and a Jadeveon Clowney is that they're going to get theirs, especially Myles Garrett. So it's just a matter of containing the damage that Myles Garrett can do in the passing game. And that's why you want that moving pocket. Wherever he is, you want to go in the opposite direction. Even if that means running into Jadeveon Clowney, I'll take my chances between the two. I'll go against Clowney more so than I would to Myles Garrett.
Oh, yeah. Myles Garrett is
he's a beast.
He's a physical prowess, and if you mess with him, but like so. All right, cool. I think I'm really, like I said, I'm really excited about this game. For the defense, if I'm the Bears, I want to slow the game down. I would want to get in a shootout with the Browns because Baker Mayfield has the highest completion percentage in the NFL currently. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. So Kyle, so take that at Cal, and
Kyle.
Yeah, because you're in the AFC North, and then we're always talking about which quarterback is the best in the AFC North. And right now, my quarterback's looking pretty familiar right now.
Yeah, right now, Baker's looking like he's the best. We'll see how that happens. We'll see if that's happening in
Baker
mid-season.
for MVP, baby. Baker for MVP, baby. No, all right. So, I'm at. One thing. If I'm the Browns, though, my strategy this game is when I watched when Joe Burrow got going, he got in the flow of things. He looked like he was able to find holes in that Bears secondary. Not Bears secondary. I'm not saying the Bears secondary is the worst in the world because it's not. The Bears got a very good defense. They got a very good defense. But watching that Jamar Chase play, I wonder if Odell Beckham might be able to recreate the same magic. He is coming back from injury, so like maybe my expectations for Odell Beckham should be lower than what I'm going to set him. But he's freaking Odell Beckham, so Odell Beckham, you go out there, you better ball the hell out.
Right.
I want to see some touchdown catches.
That's the concern. I mean, since the Rams game, week 1, we've shown that we're vulnerable in the secondary. That we are vulnerable to a deep shot. That was one of the things that had me super nervous about the game against Cincinnati was that they have Jamar Chase, who has that big play ability that we are weak in the slot in the nickel position. So maybe a T. Higgins or somebody could find a soft spot right in the middle of the zone where all of a sudden he's by himself, in 10 yards in every direction and can just moonwalk his way into the end zone if he wants to. But thankfully we were able to limit that to just the one big play when basically the game was sewn up. Obviously Justin made it interesting at the end by throwing an interception that made it from 20-3 to 20-17 in less than 2 minutes. But, it was 20-3 before Jamar comes down with that touchdown pass. And, it was the first really big play that the Bengals had in that game. And, it was good to see that we were able to get pressure on Burrow. We sacked him 4 times. We forced those 3 interceptions. And a fumble just before the interception started. It was like I think the Bengals had 4 straight turnovers on those drives. First the interception or the fumble, and then the 3 interceptions. And that was the real difference in the game because I think statistically Cincinnati won the game aside from the turnover battle.
Yeah. I shot yourself in the foot in that turnover. This is what I think the game. This is what I think the game is going to go. I really do think the Bears are going to really try to slow down the game. I don't think that they would want to get in a shootout with the Browns, and I don't think the Browns. I don't know. I don't think. I really see the Bears really taking their time on every single drive with a young quarterback. Just from patterns of other young quarterbacks in the league, like you're seeing, with the exception of Jones in New England, these rookie quarterbacks are not doing good right now in the NFL right now. Yeah. So even if Justin Fields don't do good the first game, I think he's going to have a good game. I think he's going to have. Well, I don't think he's going to have a spectacular game. I think he's going to have a very solid game. But if I'm the Bears, I'm slowing the game down. I'm taking my time on every single play. I'm having long possessions, running the ball a lot, short passes and everything. Just milking that clock. I do not if I'm the Bears, I don't want to get in a shootout with the Browns. But for the Browns side, you got Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, so that actually kind of works in their advantage. But
Right.
if I'm the Bears, I'm slowing the game down. I'm definitely slowing that game down. That's me if I'm the Bears.
Right. And what I've kind of picked up on when I, did my research is, and just knowing, my team the way that I do, what I'm really concerned about is more so how the second half will go than the first, based on whether or not we can get your offense off the field. Because you have Nick Chubb, and he's a beast of a running back. He only needed 11 carries to get 95 yards last week against the Texans. Kareem Hunt, they're not using him as much out of the backfield as far as the passing game is concerned, where he was really successful in Kansas City, but that is always there. And not to mention Odell Beckham coming back. There's your deep threat. And that little fire plug of Anthony Schwartz, who can run a 4.2 when he should be somebody that's doing my taxes with a name like Anthony Schwartz and whatnot. There's a lot to go around. You're 3 deep at the tight end position. My big worry is that you keep my defense out on the field for these long drives, whether it's only a field goal or a touchdown. And then Matt Nagy, with his play calling incompetence, will have us 3 and out so we can go back and do it again. And you guys can run the ball for 14 plays in 8 minutes and kick another field goal or score another touchdown. And you just wear my defense out so that you pull away in the end. That's worst case scenario for me, is that all of a sudden we don't have the juice to hang with you guys in the fourth quarter. And it goes from being like a 17-6 game to all of a sudden it was 31-10 final score or something like that, when the game was really a lot closer than that. Because it's kind of like the Rams game where, if you look at the game on its face in its entirety, it really was more of a 20-14 type game. But we had those 2 huge gaffes in the secondary that gave the Rams those free touchdowns, essentially. And you're looking at a 34-14 final score. I don't think the Rams were 20 points better than us that night, but the scoreboard says so. And, just like I don't think the Bears were only 3 points better than the Bengals on Sunday, but the Bengals did the work to make it a 2017 football game. That's what I think may happen on Sunday. If the Bears can't answer any of these drives, if they can't keep the Browns off the field like you're suggesting, slowing things down, moving the chains, keeping the clock rolling, keeping Baker and company off the field, it could get ugly in the second half of the football game.
Well, my worst case scenario is that receiver y'all got. I'm a big fan of his. Robinson's his name, right? Yeah, I like him a lot. My worst case scenario is Justin Fields and Robinson find newfound chemistry and they just link up a lot. That's my worst fear.
It wouldn't be newfound chemistry. It would just be new chemistry, because they don't put Justin Fields out there with the starters in practice.
Man.
It would be new chemistry that he's developed with Allen Robinson this week.
Wow.
I think that was one of the bigger issues in the second half of the Bengals game for Fields, is that he doesn't have the same timing with Robinson and Mooney and those guys that he does with the other guys that he's running on the scout team with. Those are the guys that he knows like the back of his hand, because that's who he's been practicing with. He's only been practicing with the starters for that special package of plays that usually has him running some kind of read option run play or something like that. So him actually being a starter and all day, all week practicing with Robinson and getting his timing down with Kmet and Jimmy Graham and all that kind of stuff is what I'm really interested to see on Sunday. I mean, I know it's only 1 week, so it's a small sample size, but it's more than he's had through training camp and in the first couple of weeks of this season. So I want to see how well he adapts to that, or how they adapt to each other. Justin Fields had 2 false start penalties on Sunday because he was clapping his hands expecting the ball, and the center didn't snap the ball. He got penalized for rocking back, and they called that a false start, which is hilarious, but it's because he was expecting like the guy that snaps in the ball in practice to snap the ball, and Mustafa is the starter. He doesn't snap the ball to Justin Fields, and their timing, their chemistry was off, and it cost us 10 yards in the game.
One thing Justin Fields will have for him though is he's going to have a lot of fans rooting for him. There's going to be a lot of Ohio State fans, and I hate Ohio State fans. So I can't wait to see their faces when they. So he's going to have a lot of support behind him. So he's going to have that going for him. So I guess if you were to start a away football game as a rookie quarterback, Ohio.
I'm wondering about that, because I had Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast on my show yesterday, and what he expressed to me is that before the game, everybody's going to love Justin Fields. He's a legend in the state of Ohio and all that kind of stuff. But as soon as he steps between those white lines, he's the enemy, and he's going to get the full brunt of the Cleveland Brown fan base after that. When the game is over, then we're back to the Justin Fields love fest because he's not an enemy anymore. The battle is over with and everything. But when the game is going on for those 60 minutes, they hate Justin Fields because he's not a Brown.
Well, yeah, Browns fan, like I would say probably about 50% Browns fans are maybe a little bit less percentage of Browns fans are big Ohio State fans.
Mhm.
Personally, I'm not. I never.
Yeah,
I think
90%, very clear.
Yeah, yeah. I never put the. I wouldn't put this. I'm not gonna put the Steelers over. I'm not gonna put Ohio State over the Browns ever.
Not gonna. You're confusing though Ohio State and the Steelers. I'll take that, but
because I don't know which one. Look, man. The Ohio State Buckeyes didn't sell out their stadium last game, and it was just the funniest thing to me that their fans abandoned them after they lose to a top 10 team. Oh no, we lost to a top 10 team.
They're playing Akron, dude. That's not going to bring people out. They think they're going to kill Akron.
But still, I mean, like it's a football game. I mean, Browns fans I went to a Browns game during the Freddie Kitchen era, week 16. We were mathematically eliminated. We were almost mathematically eliminated the playoffs, but it's still sold out because it was like 35 degrees because like beer.
Yeah, but what you're calling not a sellout was still like 90,000 people at Ohio State because that place would hold 110.
It was 72,000 to be exact.
Only 72,000, which is basically larger than any other NFL stadium out there. I mean, who has more than 72,000 seats in the NFL?
Cowboys, the Cowboys, the Packers, the Giants, the Jets, the Rams, the Chargers. Well, those are two teams who share stadiums.
Yeah.
Let's see. Miami made their stadium smaller, so they only hold more than 80,000 people. I think the Atlanta stadium holds more than 70,000 people. They're at 80,000. But yeah, that's just about it. The Brown stadium used to be.
Do you just have every stadium capacity in the NFL memorized, Thomas?
Oh yeah, I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd at that. I'm a nerd. I am a nerd at that. I am an absolute nerd at football stadium size.
So then you know who has the lowest capacity in the league, then, right?
Well, it was the Chargers when it was playing the soccer stadium, but I'll probably let me think. Actually, you know what? Dang, actually, wait, why am I struggling with this?
It's an easier answer.
Is it the Bengals?
It's the Bears.
Is it the Bengals? Oh, it's the Bears.
61,500. We're lowest in the NFL.
That's because you guys freaking just build on top of your old stadium, right?
Yes, because
that's really cool. Though
district would not let us tear down the colonnades and rebuild it, so we had to build our stadium inside of the columns and not tear them down.
Yeah, I really wanted to see that. That's really cool how y'all kind of like build inside the
And yet I've heard Chicago mentioned as one of the as like the city that if there were to ever be another city in the NFL to host two NFL teams, Chicago is like the next city that people talk about.
Right, because New York, LA, Chicago, those are the big three. So yeah, it would make the most sense. And it's definitely a community that could support two teams, although I don't think it would go over well. I mean, the Bears are day one NFL charter members, so all of a sudden splitting the fan base, I don't think it would be a successful venture.
No, baseball.
I mean, I love
Cubs and
Chicago.
White Sox. They've been around for 150 years as well. So I mean, it's not like the Cubs were in town for 80 years and then they brought the White Sox in. They were basically in there together from the beginning. So
that's fair. I
hate both those teams, by the way. I hate the Cubs and I hate the White Sox, but I love Chicago.
We only got about 5 minutes left on this meeting, though. Okay. So I do want to kind of go ahead and wrap up this Browns Bears discussion. Larry, tell me, what do the Browns need to do to come away with a win this week?
Run the football. Keep basically the idea that Tom had for the what the Bears would need to do. I mean, it's just be successful on third down because the Bears are kind of weak on third down. The Bengals were 6 for 12 on Sunday and third down situations. It seemed like it was worse than that as far as like us stopping them on third down. But thanks to some really stupid penalties, we gave you some freebies there on Sunday. But it's just, hang on to the football, force the rookie to make mistakes. I mean, and test the rookie. If I'm you, Justin Fields hasn't proven anything to anybody yet. I would do everything you could to shut down David Montgomery and force force Justin Fields to beat you. Because if you leave it to David Montgomery, he's going to run you into the ground. He's a beast. But if you dare us to run the ball, Montgomery will get it done. But if you shut it down and you force Justin Fields, I think you got a better shot.
Okay.
All right, man. Well, on that note, we can go ahead and move on to talking about the Cincinnati Bengals. And Larry, before you go, I want to recap a little bit with you about what happened in that game. And I was about to tear my fucking hair out because oh my God, I mentioned this on the podcast before, so listeners already have heard about this, but you mentioned 4 turnovers that the Bengals had in a row, basically, at least as far as drives go. Now, those 3 interceptions were back to back to back, but also the drive before that, the Bengals had a T. Higgins fumble, but the drive before that, don't forget. Now, the Bears drive before that was the one where Justin Fields fumbled and Logan Wilson instead of like tried to scoop and score a touchdown, and Justin Fields knocked it out of his hand and recovered the fumble. Yeah. So, but for the most part, it seems like you guys had us dead to rights when Andy Dalton was playing quarterback for the Chicago Bears. And then Justin Fields went in there and the Bengals almost made a huge comeback. Now, granted, that didn't happen until way later in the game and only once Joe Burrow got his head out of his ass. But it still kind of happened. So, what were your thoughts while that was happening?
Well, I mean, it was an interesting game. It was a game that was, that was in doubt all the way through, I think, until the 3 interceptions, because it was 7-3. We kicked the field goal at the start of the fourth quarter, make it 10-3. So it's still a 1-score game. And then the Roquan interception opened the floodgates. He does his best Urlacher impersonation and runs it 50 yards back for a touchdown. Then we peel off 2 more interceptions, one on a really great play from Jalen Johnson, where he just basically read Burrow the whole time and stepped in front of it. And then the other one was the pass rush getting to Burrow, knocking the ball out of his hands because our nose tackle ended up intercepting it that time. The big thing there was that, your defense held and forced field goals on those other 2, or actually we only scored a field goal on one of those 2 interceptions that followed. We didn't do anything with the Jalen Johnson interception, and we only got a field goal out of the second one. And, mostly because Allen Robinson forgot how to catch football in the end zone that Justin Fields placed in the absolute perfect spot. So, we had to settle for a field goal. That game could have been way further out of reach had we been able to do anything on offense, which is why I say, it's like, if you look at it statistically, the Bengals pretty much won everywhere except the turnover battle, and the Bears were able to do more with the 4 that we got than the one that you guys ended up getting. So it basically came down to whoever makes the least amount of mistakes is going to win the game, and that happened to be the Bears on Sunday.
Yeah, it was it was definitely it was a fascinating game to watch. It was an infuriating game to watch, I think, from both sides until it actually kind of came down to a final minute. But anyway, Larry, we love having you on this podcast, man. It was a great episode last week. Great episode this week. Y'all can find him at BTU_Larry on Twitter. Go check out the Bears Underground, Bears Talk Underground for the Bears side of the Bears Browns preview this week. And thanks, man. We'd next time one of these teams plays you, we should have you on again.
Absolutely. Looking
Corner and practice.
All right, so that was a good conversation that we had with Larry there. But I think it's like I said earlier, I think it's time for us to go ahead and move on and talk about these Bengals and these Steelers. So I think, like Larry was saying last week, the Bengals turnovers just absolutely freaking killed them. They cannot be doing that again this week against the Steelers, because as much as the Steelers are in a state right now of just not being a very good team and looking vulnerable and looking like a team that the Bengals could potentially get right against, instead of being the team that constantly everybody else gets right against. If you give the Steelers an inch, they're going to take a mile, and they always do.
Yep.
You can't be having sloppy play again like that. You just can't.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. I mean, like the Steelers, man. I mean, like, we watched it against the Bills. The Bills is a good team. Is a good team. The Bills is a better team than the Steelers, and you just watch them just make Josh Allen look bad. They can do the same thing to Joe Burrow if the Bengals let him. Crap. The Bears did to Joe Burrow, where they just put him in uncomfortable situations and force him to make mistakes. So the Bengals have to play neat football because they don't. The Steelers creep up on them.
Well, this is, like I said, this is a chance for the Bengals to, be the team that finally gets right against a, in theory, inferior opponent.
Way inferior.
Now for me as a Bengals fan to say that, it makes sense. Most of the national media is going to hear me saying that, and they're like, "You think you're better than the Steelers?" And I'm like, "Have you seen the Steelers? Like, have you seen the Bengals? I mean, like, I know it was a weird game against Chicago, but our defense is looking incredible. And I mean, the offense needs to get going, but I would say that right now, I think the Bengals look a little bit better than the Steelers personally.
Man, the Steelers, man, people believe in the Steelers is such a national media thing because anybody who's local don't really think the Steelers are that good. Including like I've been listening to the radio, and every time I listen to the radio, they always talking about how bad they think the Steelers are. I guess it's a Cleveland market. But even when I listen to other podcasts that are not like the mainstream podcasts or the main like the big networks nationally, they all think the Steelers aren't that good. If y'all know who I'm getting at, 4-letter networks people.
The Steelers defense looks, fairly good. Although they did allow themselves to get shredded by Derek Carr last week. He threw for 382 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, had the 126.2 quarterback rating.
I think Derek Carr is that good right now.
Derek Carr is good. I don't want to disparage Derek Carr. He is a good quarterback. But I mean, everybody, like I'm just saying, everybody had already anointed the Steelers as the number 1 defense this year, and they didn't look like it against Derek Carr. Now they slowed the Raiders' running game down, in fairness, but that was also without Josh Jacobs making much, if any, impact. I can't remember if he played at all in that game, but if he did, it was very limited before he went out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't really I think Joe Burrow could find holes in the Steelers defense. I mean, Jamar Chase is looking better and better every week, so that's very exciting for y'all. Obviously, T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and Joe Mixon. So I have the weapons on offense. But what really impressing me about the Bengals is the Bengals defense. The Bengals defense has been really looking good this year, and that's crazy to say because we would say that the one thing we was worried about this year is the Bengals defense. And
with as much money as they spent on the defense, it better be good at this point.
It looks really good, and I'm not trusting the Steelers because I ain't trusting the Steelers offense against that Bengals defense. I just think they're gonna make a lot of mistakes.
Well, that's the thing, and their offense has looked really bad for the last 2 weeks. Like They only managed 34 yards of offense in the first half against the Raiders. Najee Harris himself hasn't even had 50 yards in a game yet. And everybody, I think everybody agrees Najee Harris is a talented running back. Everybody's like, yeah, the Steelers have a very good running back there. But the problem is if he doesn't have anywhere to run, then what's he going to do?
Who's the who did they announce the starting quarterback? Is it still going to be Roethlisberger? I know he's hurt.
They have not announced it, but this happens all the damn time. Okay. And we'll talk about this a little bit more, I think, in the state of the AFC North, because I want to, keep most of the, I want to keep most of the talk directly about the Steelers to later on, because we need some content for that since we're already talking about them now. But I will say, it happens all the time. Ben Roethlisberger goes into a Bengals game and he's like, "Oh, my shoulder kind of hurts, guys. I don't know if I'm gonna be. Oops, I threw for 400 yards." It happens all the damn time. I'm we're sick of hearing about it. Like you're either gonna play or you're not gonna play. Most likely you're gonna play, but we'll talk about that later. But if I had to bet, Ben Roethlisberger's gonna play.
Well, I mean, there's a difference here. Ben Roethlisberger is 39.
Yeah.
He's old.
That's a big problem. But what I'm more focused on is the matchup between their offensive line and our defensive line. Now their defensive line versus our offensive line is another thing to pay attention to. Although I think right now our offensive line, this is a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I think our offensive line's a little underrated right now because I do, because like I think Jonah Williams and Riley Reef have played really well. I think Quentin Spain has played fairly well. Trey Hopkins had a really bad game against the Vikings, but he bounced back and he was the highest graded player on the offensive line against the Bears. Xavier Su'a-Filo has been kind of not so good, but Xavier Su'a-Filo has also not been practicing, and there's a good chance we might see the guy that we drafted in the second round, Jackson Carman, get a start against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he looked pretty good in the preseason. So, I mean, who knows? He might come in and if he has a good game against the Steelers, he's really going to endear himself to this fan base.
Okay. I mean, like, look, man, I really think I don't do well this game. I think that this is a bad matchup for the Steelers. You kind of alluded to that a lot. But yeah, I really like our chances this game. I'm really excited to see. I'm really excited to see what y'all want to do this game because, like, I just think I'm just gonna. I
really look forward to seeing what our defensive line. I think I said this a little bit ago, but I didn't expound upon it. But what our defensive line with, like, Trey Hendrickson, DJ Reader, Larry Ogunjobi, BJ Hill, Sam Hubbard, just all these weapons that we have on the defensive line right now that have just been going absolutely off all season so far, going up against the Steelers offensive line that couldn't, just simply cannot block. They've generally graded below average, like just on the whole. Particularly been grading badly as run blockers. So I think it's going to be another one of those weeks where Najee Harris is not really particularly able to get anything done on the ground. And that's really going to go a long way to us being able to dictate the tempo of this game. And I could see it potentially being a low-scoring game because, Joe Burrow doesn't quite look like he's fully mentally recovered from the injury. He looks like he's pretty well physically recovered from the injury enough to play football, but like the mental side doesn't seem to be quite there yet. But I don't think it's going to matter against the Steelers because I think it's going to be a low-scoring slugfest, and I think we're going to be able to establish our run a little bit better than they will.
Okay, I honestly think that I think you guys should be good against them. I think Jamar Chase might have a couple breakaway throws. Jamar Chase could. I mean, he has every single game so far. He's had a deep touchdown pass. Yeah, he might get more of those, and that's early in the season too. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah, and I mean, he's gonna be special for this team. Like, he really is. You can already tell. But like I said, as far as our run defense goes, man, like, we did really well against Dalvin Cook, like way better than anybody expected us to do against Dalvin Cook. And then, like, I mean, if you just look at like the ESPN box score against the Bears, it'll be like, oh, well, they let the Bears run all over them. It's not necessarily the case. We let the Bears quarterbacks run all over us. Like Andy Dalton, that still boggles my mind that we let Andy Dalton run all over us. But Andy Dalton and Justin Fields did pretty well running the ball, but the Bears running backs didn't really do so well.
How y'all let Andy Dalton run the ball on y'all?
I didn't
know Andy Dalton had legs.
He does actually. That was one really, like, when he was in Cincinnati, that was actually one underrated, I think, part of his game. Like, it wasn't really something he broke out of the box too often. He was mostly like a stand in the pocket and find the open guy kind of passer. But he did have the ability to scramble, and he did have the ability to kind of like do creative things with his legs. And that was just something that, we'd never really seen in Cincinnati before. I mean, very briefly at the beginning of Carson Palmer's career, he was kind of able to do that a little bit, but Andy Dalton was the first one who, like, just kind of like was always that way. And he definitely can scramble. It's not his go-to move. But with the way our defensive line was playing, against the Bears, he kind of didn't really have much of a choice.
Man. All right, well, we'll see what happens, man. I don't think you have to worry about Ben Roethlisberger running that much against y'all.
I was actually just going to say that because just look at what Roethlisberger's done so far. I mean, he's a hobbled old man. First of all, he's 39 and he's been just injured as shit and back, and he's been nothing but a statue in the backfield all season. He's only attempted one single run so far this season. I think the statistics will say it's like 4 or 5 runs, but like those are all like sacks and stuff. He's only actually attempted one single run so far this season, and it went for half the yards that I think it went for like 8 yards, but it was like it was like 3rd and 16 or something like that. So it only actually went for half the number of yards that they needed. So I am like forgive me if I'm not even like in the least bit threatened by the fact that like maybe Ben Roethlisberger might run all over us.
He ain't running all over.
Now, granted, if Dwayne Haskins plays, that could be a problem. But I seriously doubt, even if Ben Roethlisberger, by some miracle, Ben Roethlisberger actually doesn't play in this game, it'll probably be Mason Rudolph, not Dwayne Haskins.
I was about to say, and you ain't worry about Mason Rudolph. Good old Mason.
No, I'm not worried about Mason Rudolph's legs.
Good old, I'll get my father on you. I'll call my dad.
I'll call my dad.
God, man, I was talking to a Steelers fan today.
He was mean to me.
I was talking to a Steelers fan today, and he was like, dude, even I hate Mason Rudolph. Like, God, I hate that kid.
He's got such a punchable face.
I'm pretty sure
I was so happy when the Steelers drafted him because I'm like, oh man, that guy just looks like exactly the kind of guy I would want to be the quarterback of the opposing team.
That's great. That's great. I mean, chill on Mason. Let's stop roasting Mason Rudolph. He's too easy. He's too easy to roast. Him and Juju. That's why I don't roast Juju, because they're too easy to roast.
I think I am a little concerned, I think, about the Steelers pass rush because at least up the middle, the Bengals have had some issues. And like I said, if Jackson Carman plays, we have no idea what Jackson Carman's going to look like against starters in the NFL. Quentin Spain has been kind of up and down. Trey Hopkins, I think he's fine because he went back to playing like he usually does against the Bears. People are just, we still got the memories of what happened against the Vikings in our heads. But I mean, like you got like Stephon Tuitt and Tyson Alualu are both on IR for the Steelers. So that's going to help. But you still got to worry about Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt. And I know they're both listed on the injury report, but again, like I kind of said with Ben Roethlisberger, whether or not that, like it doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to play. Like it happens all the time. Like Bengals fans be like, oh, well, they got this guy, and this guy. They're all questionable for the game, and then they all end up playing. Like it always happens.
Dimitri Fulton is listed as questionable for the Browns game. So is Odell.
Here's the thing: like if one of those two guys plays, then you still got Cam Hayward pairing up with either TJ Watt or Alex Highsmith, and that's not ideal, especially when you got Joe Burrow, who looks like he is still like scared in the pocket.
Yeah, their D line is good. Like there's no disputing how good their D line is. Just their offense is just so freaking bad. Who's home this game? The Bengals or the Steelers?
It is in Pittsburgh.
Ooh.
I initially had this game when we did our season predictions earlier in the year, like back in the off season. I think I had this game picked as a loss, I believe. I can't remember if I picked them to sweep the Steelers or not, but if I didn't, this would have been the game that I picked them to lose.
I think they win this game.
Well, based on the way things are going now, but based on the way I thought things were going to be going at the beginning of the season, like I said, that may have been the reason I picked this game to be a loss if I did. However, now my perspective has definitely changed. I'm not saying like I'm going to sit here and guarantee the Bengals are going to win or anything like that, but I do think that this is a very winnable game for the Bengals right now. The Steelers look like crap way before I expected them to actually be showing the signs of looking like crap. I knew that was going to happen. I didn't think it would happen this early in the season.
Oh, the Steelers are on a downward spiral and slope. They're on a slippery slope downhill. The Steelers, this is a matter of time for the Steelers.
Here's the way I see it as far as the Bengals and Steelers matchup this week. The Bengals front seven. So, I mean, if we're just talking starters, that's Trey Hendrickson, Larry Ogunjobi, DJ Reader, Sam Hubbard, Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt, and maybe Akeem Davis-Gaither. They might kind of you might throw that seventh guy into kind of a rotational kind of thing, but I'd say Akeem Davis-Gaither is probably your seventh guy in that front seven. And I think especially with all the injuries the Steelers have right now, that is at the very least a much more balanced front seven than what the Steelers are dealing with right now. I think if that Bengals front seven is not better, it's at least on par. And then the offensive lines, I think, are pretty much a wash. I think the Steelers' offensive line is crap, and the Bengals' offensive line, as it's currently composed, is playing like crap. I don't think it's entirely composed of crap. I think Jonah Williams and Riley Reef are really good, but when you have like nothing going on in the interior, then I don't know. I think the O-line could be potentially considered to be a wash.
I think you guys have a better. I think you guys have a better O-line, but I think that their O-line, that they just have such a good defensive line that it makes our O-line on par with their O-line because of how good their defense line is.
Well, if we're just talking about trench play, then I guess what I'm saying is I think if we're talking about trench play as a whole, I think the Bengals have the advantage because I think the Bengals right now have the better defensive line. And the offensive lines are kind of on par with each other.
You think the Bengals right now have a bet? Okay, I got you. I got you.
Yeah. Especially with all these injuries the Steelers are dealing with right now. But even without all the injuries, I don't know about that. If the Steelers were fully healthy, then you'd probably just have to go with the Steelers based on experience alone. Like the Bengals defensive line is playing really well, but they also just got put together. So, blow for blow, you'd probably take the Steelers defensive line over the Bengals defensive line. But as it's composed right now, including injuries, including everything, I'd say the Bengals probably have the advantage in that category. Offensive line, I don't think anybody has the advantage. I think the Steelers' offensive line is crap. And I think the Bengals' offensive line is kind of more or less playing like crap. I did say they were underrated earlier, but I think they're underrated because people aren't really seeing it. They're not seeing the potential. They're not seeing what's really going on underneath all the quarterback hits and the sacks. But at the end of the day, there are still a bunch of quarterback hits and sacks. So as far as pass and run protection, you really have to say the Bengals and Steelers, I think, are probably about on par right now. The secondary is interesting, though, because I think the Bengals secondary is better than the Steelers secondary. The Steelers got Minkah Fitzpatrick, and you got to give that to him. And Jesse Bates has not been quite looking like the all-world safety that he was last year, but he's still really good. You got Von Bell, who's pretty good. You got Chidobe Awuzie, who has absolutely done incredible so far as our starting cornerback. Trey Waynes is practicing again. You might see him come back. And if he can come in and replace Eli Apple as, the other guy who's starting, then you've got no holes on the secondary, none. And this is also assuming Trey Waynes plays the way he was playing in the preseason. Or not the preseason, in camp and basically what we paid him to do. So, it's a lot of assumptions there with Trey Waynes, but at the same time, if Trey Waynes is who we think he is, then suddenly we have no holes on the secondary. And the Steelers, I'm not so sure I'm feeling their cornerbacks. Minkah Fitzpatrick's a great safety.
Yeah.
But the rest of their secondary, I'm just not sure if I really think that it's all that much to write home about.
All right. I didn't think about it that way. I have thought about it that way. I have thought about the Steelers secondary as Minkah Fitzpatrick and everybody else.
Right.
That's actually literally how I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, dang, it really is just Minkah Fitzpatrick and everybody else.
The Bengals special teams, I think, is better than the Steelers special teams. I mean, Evan McPherson alone is, way better than what Chris Boswell's their kicker right now, right?
I'm not sure.
Evan McPherson's a freaking beast.
Well, duh.
Kevin Huber, the Steelers have a pretty good punter, but I think Kevin Huber is just as good, if not maybe a little bit better.
The Browns got the best punter, the Scottish Hammer, baby. Scottish Hammer.
I think I would. I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I can't sit here and like give you a legit argument about that. But I'd actually I'd be curious to kind of see how the Scott. What's his actual name? The Scottish.
Jamie Gillian.
Jamie Gillian. I would be interested to see what happens when you pair Kevin Huber's numbers up against Jamie Gillian's numbers. I think Kevin Huber is super underrated around the league. Actually, back when I was writing for Cincy Jungle, my editor got mad at me one time because I said that Kevin Huber was like a staple on the team and wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. And she basically yelled at me over this. She was like, no, Kevin Huber, he's not doing good. And they need to move on from him soon. And it's like 4 or 5 years along now. And Kevin Huber is like one of the most steady and consistent members of our team. And I'm just like, I think I might have been right about this one because Kevin Huber's a friggin' beast.
Yeah, you were right. I don't want to call nobody out on this podcast.
I'm not going to name any names.
But she didn't believe in you.
Well, look, I'm really not trying to start a feud here, so I'm not going to name any names here. But I will say it was my editor back then, and most people who know about Cincy Jungle can probably figure out who I'm talking about. But I'm not going to name any names here because I'm not trying to start a war here.
But she didn't believe in you, though, Kyle.
She didn't. She believed in me. She didn't believe in that, and I thought she was insane for saying that. Like insane. Like she was like, "No, Kevin Huber bad," and I'm like, "What are you on?
She probably
drugs are you on, and where can I find them?"
She's probably a great editor. She's probably a great editor. I don't know who we're talking about. But she's probably an amazing editor.
She was a fine editor. She really built Cincy Jungle up from where it was, and it really kind of blew up when she was kind of in charge. And you got to give her a lot of credit for a lot of things, but that got on my nerves. That one
thing though. That one thing we got to hold her accountable for that one thing though.
Yes, but the whole point of that is to say that I think I think I would put Kevin Huber up against any punter in the league, and that includes, I believe, Jordan Berry is his name in Pittsburgh, and that also includes Jamie Gillian. But we'll talk about that another time because I want to actually have the numbers in front of me to back that up. But yeah, so I mean, special teams, I think the Bengals are better. Defense, I think the Bengals defense right now is more complete than the Steelers defense, especially with all the injuries. But even without the injuries, I think the Bengals defense could at least compete with the Steelers defense the way that they've been playing. Joe Burrow, I think, even though he didn't look great against Chicago, I still think he's the better quarterback than Ben Roethlisberger.
Oh yeah, definitely.
At this stage of Ben Roethlisberger's career, I think Joe Burrow is definitely the better quarterback, even if he is not really super completely comfortable. His pocket presence is, definitely his biggest issue right now, which used to be his superpower. But because of that, I think that it stands to reason that he has the ability to come out of that. I think he's going to regain his pocket presence eventually. And if it doesn't happen against Pittsburgh, then, it is what it is. I still think the Bengals are overall a more complete team. But if it does happen against Pittsburgh, then that's another clear advantage that the Bengals have. On paper, I would argue that Bengals look like the better team right now. Then again,
on paper, on film, on a lot of things. On paper, on film, on a lot of things. In a lot of different ways. I would say that going into this game, I would say the Bengals probably look like the better team. But I would have said that about the Bears game too. And I'd still say that about the Bears. I still think that we're a better team than the Bears. But at the end of the season, games like the Bears happen. Is there in the season?
I know it's not the end of the season. My point being that I would have said that and still would say that about the Bears. And look what happened in that game. So I mean, you can never really truly tell.
Yeah.
Enough talking about the Bengals and Steelers, at least in the context of how it relates to the Bengals. Let's go ahead and move on to the fantasy football league that we are currently pioneering.
Oh, yeah.
So you've got – okay, I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. So this week, Thomas, you were 0-2 heading into this week, and you probably need to start getting some wins if you're going to be competitive in this league.
I'll get some wins eventually. Will I make the playoffs? Probably not, but I'll get some wins eventually.
Well, I mean, you never know. I mean, like, what is it? I think, like, it's a 12-team league, I believe, and I think 6 teams make the playoffs. So if you start turning around now, you could totally make the playoffs.
Oh, okay. I mean, you know, I believe.
I'll actually have to. I'm not 100% sure on that. I should probably know because I'm the league commissioner.
I believe that. I
will say though, you're going up against Christopher Deaton this week. All about that Bosa, okay. And it's not looking great for you based on what I'm seeing right now.
Well, it is all about that Bosa. Well, you know, my eighth in the hole.
Who's
Baker
that?
freaking Mayfield. Baker freaking Mayfield.
Well, Baker Mayfield could go off against the Bears. I do think that's possible. Now, another thing that could potentially go in your favor is the legitimate probability that Dalvin Cook is either limited this week or doesn't play at all. Which, I mean, that could even out the matchup. And Christopher really doesn't have any good backup running back options. He's used, and on that note, he does have a good backup wide receiver option with Laviska Shenault, but he's already using his flex spot on Julio Jones. So he can't add, there's no way to get another wide receiver in there. So if he takes Dalvin Cook down, his only options really are Alexander Madison and Michael Carter. And I mean, Alexander Madison would be Dalvin Cook's backup, so he'd get all the carries that Dalvin Cook would be missing. But he's not nearly as good of a running back as Dalvin Cook, so I don't think he'd be as effective with those carries.
You know who I think? I think Ronald Jones is going to have a comeback game. Come on, Ronald, do something for me. Finally, just do something for me.
I was actually going to suggest that maybe you give Ronald Jones a break this week because here's my thought process. Ronald Jones is playing against the Los Angeles Rams in Los Angeles this week.
Yeah.
So I mean that defense is just stifling. You got Latavius Murray, he's part of a running back rotation in Baltimore, but he's also got a touchdown every single week, and he's playing against the Lions.
Yeah.
So considering the fact that I think the projected points are only about like 1 point off, I think I would trust Latavius Murray a little bit more than Ronald Jones this week. And it would give you an opportunity to sit Ronald Jones and kind of give him a week on the bench to see if you really want to keep him on the bench, or if maybe if he has a good game, you're like, well, maybe I should put him back in the lineup.
Watch him go off this week.
I think it'd be a good test to take Ronald Jones off.
Watch him go off this week. Watch.
That would be funny. That'd be funny. Especially after I advised you to have Ronald Jones in the lineup. And then the second I start advising you to not have him in the lineup, then suddenly he starts doing well.
You know what? I'm going to put him in the lineup this week.
All right.
No, I'm not.
Well, you do what you do, but my suggestion, what I would do if I was running this team,
You suck, Ronald. You suck, Ronald.
So, yeah, I'm going off against off in church, Jan Romero this week. And he hasn't been doing well so far. He's 0-2. And honestly, like this particular week, he's got I think he's got Joe Burrow starting, which I mean, I'm gonna be like, yeah, Joe Burrow. But like honestly, this week, I don't know about that. Now, I mean, oh boy. Okay, so he made a good decision by starting DJ Moore. DJ Moore is having a game against the Texans.
Oh, that's a good receiver though, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is a good receiver, but like he hasn't been super great so far this year. I think he got. He had a really good game last week too. Yeah, DJ Moore was really good pickup for him, and he's having another really good game right now. So that might receiver. Right now, he's actually favored to win. When I took all these notes and everything, he was not favored to win then, but he is now favored to win. So, but if I was him, and I hope please Jan, don't listen to this podcast. Skip past this part actually, because I don't want you to actually hear my advice. But on the low, my advice is,
Man, don't take his advice, man. Don't take his advice.
God damn it.
Don't take his advice.
Never mind. Screw my advice, because
screw your advice.
No, since I wrote up all these notes, he's actually made the change that I was going to suggest he make.
Yeah, screw your advice. Everybody sucks. Anyway.
He had Joe Burrow starting. My thought process is you got Joe Burrow against the Steelers offense or against the Steelers defense. Bengals Steelers games are always like slugfests. Like, a lot of them are like super low scoring. So I wouldn't necessarily trust Joe Burrow this week. I'd put Matt Ryan in, especially because he's going against the New York Giants. Now, it looks like since I wrote all these notes up, he did actually do that. Matt Ryan starting,
we got smart listeners.
DJ Moore. And
we got
so
smart podcasts.
So, wait, did you say he's listening to the podcast?
No, I said we got smart listeners to this podcast. I respect y'all.
Oh, yeah.
Cheers to y'all.
Well, he which is impressive because he's actually on vacation right now. He was
he lives to work.
He was out in the mountains. I'm surprised he kind of found time to do that.
Hey man, look, no matter where you are.
So I'm actually kind of getting kind of nervous about this game now because DJ Moore went off and Matt Ryan, I think, is a much better start than Joe Burrow this week. So
people be out in space doing fantasy football.
I might be looking at my first loss this week.
Yeah, get that L.
Fuck you.
Well, fuck you too. Yo, so
also one last suggestion, and man, I pray that he didn't change it, so maybe he will continue to keep that not changed. But if I was him, I'd put Marquise Brown in over Christian Kirk. But Jan, don't listen, Jan. I want to win. Don't do it, but you probably should.
I'm sorry. I just placed an order on a new speaker for my tailgate. Yeah. Oh yeah. So I can have a nice tailgate for you. So I can have a nice little. It's a speaker with a mic and everything. So I can have it all set up for. I can have it all set up for. I have it all set up and ready to go for my little TikTok live I want to do.
Hell yeah.
Hell freaking yeah. I can't wait. It's gonna be a fun little tailgate.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Well, let's I think the last matchup that I wanted to highlight for the fantasy league before we move on to the state of the AFC North is Debbie Morgan. She's got Debbie's unmatched team, one of the last 2-0 teams left. Currently, statistically, the best team in the league right now, going up against Jordan Heiser's Jungle Bungles, who are currently 1-1. And it's looking like this one could really kind of go either way because both teams have players who are listed as questionable. Deontay Johnson actually legitimately might not play. And Lamar Jackson's issue is illness related, so I think he probably will play. If I had to bet, I'd put my money on Debbie's team because honestly, right now that seems like the correct one to take. Debbie's team is probably the thing to go with right now. But like I said, I do think it could ultimately go either way. We'll have to see what happens on Sunday.
Okay. You go, Debbie. I'm rooting for you, Debbie.
All right. So that is pretty much everything that we're looking at as far as the fantasy league goes this week. Let's go ahead and start talking about the other AFC North teams. So let's see.
Who gonna get in first? Who gonna get into first? We going into the Ravens. We are getting the Ravens first, right?
Yeah, we're definitely gonna get in the Ravens first, I think.
Oh yeah, let's dig into
so the Ravens beat the Kansas City Chiefs, which I will admit was impressive. I'm not going to like sit here and say that was not an impressive thing, but I have said kind of this whole time that I think the Ravens are the kind of team that's going to like kind of get started kind of hot and then kind of like trail off. And the way that their injury situation's been going lately, I definitely think that's I definitely think that's a thing that's being fully realized on the whole. So they draw the Detroit Lions this week. Rest in peace, Lions, because that's pretty much a death sentence for the Lions right now. The Lions are not a good football team, and the Ravens are coming off of a. I mean, it could be a trap game. It could be a trap game because I mean the Lions, they did have that big comeback against the 49ers that fell short, and then they played pretty well against the Green Bay Packers in the first half. They haven't really put together a complete game yet. But, I mean, you never know. Maybe the Ravens look past the Lions after riding high off of their own fumes against the Chiefs. And, I mean, maybe you could see something happen there. But I really don't think that's going to happen because the Ravens are known for being a good running team. And the Lions are awful at defending against the run.
I think it'll be close. Yeah, I actually think it'll be close, actually. You know, and I'm not – it's still early in the season. These first 3 weeks, first quarter of the season, the scores are going to be very sporadic. You know one thing, I really want to say this about the Ravens. Do you not realize that we're only in the first couple of weeks of the season and it's 7? Like, all right, so I was thinking this, man. I was thinking about this, right? So they go 4-0 in the preseason. You beat the Chiefs and they celebrate being the Chiefs like they beat the Chiefs in the playoffs.
All right.
Yeah, and it occurred to me that do the Ravens realize that there's 17 games in the regular season? Do they realize there's 7 playoff spots? Like half the teams and nearly half you got to be in top half to make the playoffs. I mean, I'm just saying, man, like slow your roll, Baltimore. Y'all kind of sprinting a marathon right now.
Right.
We'll see what happens. There's a reason why half the team is injured right now. That's going to catch up to them eventually. I still think they're going to start off hot and they're going to fall off. But I think it's going to be close, actually. I think it's going to be a real close game. I think the Ravens going to end up winning. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't think it's going to be close. I think matchup wise alone, this is just a terrible. And look, because I don't think Jared Goff is going to be able to keep up. I don't think Jared Goff is going to be able to keep up with the scoring power of the Ravens offense against that Lions defense. I think this has blowout written all over it. Like, I mean, I don't believe in the Lions to really slow the Ravens down. I don't believe in the Lions to get anything done against that Ravens defense. It could happen. It could happen, but I don't think that.
No, the Ravens going to win that game, though. Or not.
I think the Ravens are going to decisively, if not like completely decisively win, if not completely blow the Lions out.
Okay.
But like I said, we'll see. So then the Steelers, as far as the AFC North goes, we kind of already talked about them quite a bit because the Bengals play them. So we, obviously we've kind of taken a peek behind the curtain there already a little bit. But just to focus the lens a little bit more on the Steelers here, I think right now the narrative around Pittsburgh is this team looks horrible on offense and is seeing a decent amount of attrition right now on defense. So this is not just a huge game for the Bengals, because one thing I actually wanted to mention earlier with the Bengals, I think I did mention that this is the most important game so far of Zach Taylor's career in Cincinnati. So that there's so many different implications it has in Cincinnati. But in Pittsburgh, it's got at least as far as their fans, I think it's got more implications for them than they're necessarily willing to admit, because they're cocky and don't want to admit that the Bengals and Steelers are rivals.
Every team in the AFC North is rivals.
Exactly. They just want to be like, we're so much better than you. Look at us on our high horse, but I mean, You wouldn't know it if you'd actually pay attention to the emotion that happens every time these two teams play. Like, I don't believe that for a second. But here's the thing: if the Steelers win this game, then they're going to be it's going to be that classic get right game, and it's a jumping board for them to go off and start like putting together wins and stuff like that. And it would put them in first place in the division. Essentially, it would confirm that they're still a team to watch out for and a team who could still beat the teams that they're expected to beat. But if they lose, the alarm bells are going to start sounding all around the country. We know they're going to start sounding in Pittsburgh because, Pittsburgh fans are
worse,
historically overreactionary. And most fan bases are overreactionary, but the Steelers really kind of everybody thinks of the Steelers fan base as, oh my God, Christian McCaffrey's going in the locker room. Oh man, can they keep him healthy at all?
Dang,
But anyway,
literally, I literally said that. I'm like, look, man, the thing is though, is Christian McCaffrey never helped. I literally said that.
You said that before the episode started.
Oh my God, I wish we had it on video.
We'll talk about that a little bit more in the predictions episode. But anyway, if the Steelers lose this game, it's you're going to start hearing all the questions come out. Is this team going to be Tomlin's first sub 500 team? Is the offensive line a complete disaster? Is Ben Roethlisberger washed up? Are the Steelers cooked? I mean, man, it'll be fascinating to watch, and I'm 100% here for it. I am right here ready to watch this disaster in Pittsburgh unfold. And if the Bengals beat them, all hell's going to break loose, and it's going to.
Oh yeah, Pittsburgh still sucks. Pittsburgh still is and always will suck.
And everybody's going to start agreeing with us too.
Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be glorious. They're going to have a bad season this year. I think they'll rebound next year, though. I think eventually, what the Steelers are going to do, they're going to end up having a really bad season. They're going to end up getting a young quarterback, kind of like the Patriots did, and they're going to reboot their franchise with a young quarterback to compete with Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, and Joe Burrow. And then Lamar Jackson will be the next quarterback out of the AFC North.
I think they could. As far as the Steelers go, part of what's killing them right now is kind of like I was talking about with the Ravens earlier, but part of what's killing the Steelers right now, especially on defense, is injuries. Because the defense is the thing that was supposed to carry them this year. But like I mentioned earlier, Stephon Tuitt and Tyson Alualu are both on IR already. This week, Alex Highsmith is legitimately he hasn't been practicing with a groin injury. And it's looking like he's not going to play. TJ Watt also has a groin injury, and there's been questions about whether he'll play or whether he'll be limited in the game or whatever. But I imagine TJ Watt's probably going to play. That's just kind of like how Pittsburgh typically does things. But Alex Highsmith legitimately might not play. And then, you still got Melvin Ingram, but then you don't have that rotation, and then Melvin Ingram might get worn down over the game. But then again, Melvin Ingram has historically had good games against the Bengals, so I don't know if that's going to carry over to Pittsburgh, but we'll see.
We'll see.
But this injury report, I think is somewhat worth paying attention to, at least as far as the defensive players goes. Now, I will, and Deontay Johnson, the wide receiver, he could potentially not play. So then at that point, you're dealing with Chase Claypool and Juju Smith-Schuster, who I'm betting you Von Bell's itching to hit again.
Yeah, he is. I think we all itching to hit that guy.
Yeah, pretty much. And then Chase Claypool, if you can put a good corner on him, then you might potentially be able to minimize his impact. And then you don't have somebody like Deontay Johnson there to kind of take the top, not take the top off, but kind of create that third really impossible to manage option. So that could be a big thing as far as the injury report is concerned this week. Ben Roethlisberger also on the injury report, but I'm not going to lie to you, Thomas. I don't care. I really don't care if Ben Roethlisberger's on the injury report or not. Because I don't care because I mean everybody in Cincinnati's been talking about it, and I from what I hear, everybody in Pittsburgh's been talking about it. Everybody around the NFL is talking about it. It's like, well, just because Ben Roethlisberger's on the injury report doesn't mean he's not going to play because he does this all the damn time. But I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the fact that Ben Roethlisberger is hot trash. I'm talking about the fact that Ben Roethlisberger at 39 years old is no longer a good quarterback in the NFL. And I straight up do not care if Ben Roethlisberger plays or not. He could come in and try to do that cowboy thing. Like, look, my shoulder was injured, but it's feeling a little bit better. I think I can tough through the pain. Oh, look, I just accidentally threw 400 yards. Yeah, he might attempt that, but he's not going to do it because he's not good.
That's great.
Ben Roethlisberger is not good anymore. If Ben Roethlisberger or Mason Rudolph is playing in this game, I pretty much feel the exact same way about the Bengals' chances to win. So I could give a shit less if Ben Roethlisberger is playing or not. Like I legitimately, I might be vaguely curious to see if he plays or not, just because he does this all the time. But as far as like whether I'm worried about it actually impacting the game, I don't. I don't care about Ben Roethlisberger playing. Play or don't. I'm not interested anymore. I'm not doing this anymore. So that's pretty much how I feel about that.
No, I mean, hey man, look, Ben Roethlisberger's a drama queen. All NFL players are pretty much nowadays. But I mean, this guy. Ugh, I roast this guy enough. So I don't feel like roasting him right now because I don't really got any new material to roast him with.
Right. All right.
I use all my seasons on roasting him. I got no more new seasons. I use garlic. I use lemon pepper, paprika, everything to roast him.
But did you use some butcher's twine to tie the rosemary on there at the very end? I mean, he's gonna need it. That guy probably.
I can't wait till he throws three. I can't wait till he throws 3 picks against y'all defense.
It's gonna be interesting. I've been talking to some people on Bengals Twitter about this, but I am all here for seeing Mike Hilton get a pick 6 against Ben Roethlisberger. I would love to see that. I would so love to see that right now. But anyway, guys, I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Battle of Ohio podcast. Thank you so much for listening. You can always find me, more of what I do, at Kyle Phelps 92 on Twitter, facebook.com/the Phelps. Go check out my YouTube channel, just Kyle Phelps. I haven't uploaded anything in a while there, and I don't know when the next time I'm going to upload something is, but I'll put videos up there every once in a while, just as like extra Bengals stuff to supplement what we do on this podcast. So might be worth just, following that just for future purposes. You can find more of what Thomas does at T_star94 on Twitter and Instagram, and YouTube and TikTok. You can find him at the Thomas J Network.
Thomas J Network.
Yep. So, like I said, thanks for listening, everybody, and leave y'all with a Who Day.
And go Browns.